You are listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive, Patient Safety Radio. I am your hostess, Pat Rouleau. If you've listened to this program before, you may have heard me talk about smart meters, cell phones, and how electromagnetic fields are basically the 21st century pollution. Medical studies show that the body cannot withstand constant exposure to these radiation-producing devices on a long-term basis, as they have a cumulative effect which leads to health problems. So with this concern, I personally do lots of research and reading. And recently, I came upon an excellent book titled EMF FREEDOM Solutions for the 21st Century Pollution. I read it all in one sitting, and once finished, I just knew that I had to get the author of this outstanding book on our program. So she is with us today, Elizabeth Plourde, a clinical laboratory scientist, a medical researcher, an international lecturer and author, and we have lots to talk about, so let's get started. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate the opportunity to share my research. The hardest part about being a medical researcher is realizing the whole world doesn't know what I've uncovered. It's imperative that they do.
We are using this show as a forum to uncover those type of things, so I so appreciate your expertise. Now, on this show, we always like to find out how our guest comes to do the work that they do, and I know that you have a personal health journey that prompted you to research and write your book. But before we share your story, give us a quick review. What is an EMF, and why is it not safe?
It stands for electromagnetic field, and the problem with it is that we're electrical. All of our cells have an electrical charge, and so this outside influencing our electricity, we're impacting literally every cell in our body, and the health impact is just going to continue to mount because we weren't designed to be electrically radiated like this on a daily basis, and now it's 24 hours a day.
Right, and we're going to get into some of those sources of constant blasting of these EMFs, but prior to that, can you tell us a little bit about your personal EMF experience?
Yes, being a medical researcher for 25 years, this book on EMF is the fourth book I've written. I'm a menopause practitioner and hormone specialist. Those are my first few books. And so I have people contacting me from all over the United States, actually around the world because of my book. And I initially started getting aware of the electromagnetic radiation symptoms in Northern California when they started putting in the smart meters. And so I was getting calls from women with headaches and insomnia, which are typical menopausal symptoms. And when I looked at their profile, I realized it wasn't menopause, and then finally understood that it was due to their smart meters. Once their utility smart meters went on their houses. So I decided that we would not have a smart meter on our house, and by then California had ruled that it couldn't be mandatory, and so we were able to opt out. I educated our neighbors on both sides and got them to opt out, yet when the smart meters went into their neighborhood, they started installing them on Monday. By Thursday afternoon, I had a rash, itchy bloody rash on my ankle. A week later, it was all the way up my leg. A month later, it was over my entire body. During that time, I also developed food allergies. I was reacting to every food I ate. I'd get hives all over my body within 2 hours of eating anything. So all these symptoms started within a month of the smart meter installation, and all I did was get sicker and sicker. I could no longer use a cell phone. I would get itchy bloody sores within 30 seconds. I get them on my ankle, so this thing about not holding them to your head, they are impacting your entire body, no matter where you hold them. I could not use the computer anymore. I would get itchy bloody sores up my computer arm, my mouse arm, and I had to quit going out in public because I could feel everybody's cell phones. When they would transmit, it would feel like sharp knives going into my body. So this was just, I became a hermit for 4 months. I had started my book on electromagnetic radiation because of the research that I had uncovered, and I had to quit work because I couldn't use a computer anymore. So finally, I was able to find research about a different type of blocker, or it's not a blocker, but a harmonizer. And once I started using that, within days I felt better. Within a week and a half, I was able to go back to work. And 3 weeks after I started using it, I was able to go back out in public, be in a Wi-Fi hotel for 4 days. The other thing that happened during this time was that Wi-Fi would just affect me so much I'd feel like I was on board a ship. It would feel like I had to just, I couldn't find my footing, and I'd get like a seasick nausea. So at 3 weeks of wearing this technology, I was able to be 4 days in a hotel with 1,500 people in the room, all with their cell phones, and I didn't feel any of it. So the book actually morphed into the second part of it is how to protect yourself from these radiations, because I realized that so many people are getting this sick. We are finding people coming to us being health consultants that are so sick. They just don't even want to live anymore. They don't feel like they can get through another day. Their headaches are so bad. Their insomnia is so awful. People were ready to leave their jobs that were being exposed to high doses of radiation, and they felt like they'd get so sick during the day's work they couldn't go back to work. And now we're getting them back to work.
So this technology that's supposed to really move us forward is perhaps holding us back. And, one of my fears is that people have all of these symptoms and they don't really know, and doctors don't really know where they're coming from. So people get diagnosed with ailments and diseases that they don't have, taking drugs they don't need, having tests they don't need. And that's of concern. So it's important to raise the awareness that these smart meters in particular are definitely a health problem. Give us a little bit of information about why they are a health problem. What's the problem with smart meters that causes us to feel those radio frequencies?
Right. The problem with the smart meters is that these are now 24 hours a day of radiation. The body will repair. We're awesomely designed to repair. And the DNA breaks that are caused by the radiation will actually self-heal if we can get away from the radiation. The problem is the smart meters are now pulsing. They call them micropulses or microbursts multiple times a minute, 24 hours a day. So there is nowhere for the body to go to do the repair that's necessary for the amount of radiation we're being exposed to. And this is causing huge health problems. You're right. They're having tests they don't need, procedures they don't need. They're getting MRIs for the headaches. They're getting sleeping pills for the insomnia. And they're getting MRIs for the heart problems that they're having too.
Were you the one that told me that people are getting pacemakers installed because of the arrhythmias and not knowing where they're coming from?
Exactly. Absolutely causes heart palpitations. The problem is that right now there's about 20% of people who show the symptoms. And the reason for the symptoms is that the more toxic you are and the more radiation you've been exposed to, these are the people. If you've got chemicals, heavy metal poisoning, these are the people that are showing the smart meter symptoms. And so not everybody's showing them. So some people can be exposed to the radiation and not have heart palpitations, and yet the next person can have it. So this is a real problem, and they are getting pacemakers installed instead of recognizing that they just need to be away from the cell phone radiation or the smart meters or the Wi-Fi, and the symptoms go away.
Even though we can't feel it, we're being affected by it, and I think that's a big part of the problem. It's not something you can see. You don't necessarily feel it. It is going to be the accumulative effect, and one of those things you don't fall over right now, so must be okay. That's where I think it's very helpful to have somebody come in with some of those meters, the acoustometer and the ELF meter, and just to show you and go from place to place around your home so you could actually see those numbers to see where in your home could be problem spots.
Absolutely. We can do that. The biggest thing that we recommend to people is to start in getting all electronics out of your bedroom. Get the TVs out of the bedroom, unplug your lamps. What's happening is that we were able to withstand a lot of the electric devices that we've had developed over the last 100 years. And we can do that if we're not adding on the cell phones and the Wi-Fi and the smart meters. But now that we have all that, we need to reduce all forms of electricity. Because if you put a meter next to just a lamp cord that's plugged in, even though the lamp's not on, the meter really buzzes. It shows that there's electricity coming out. And in order for the body to repair, we need to just reduce all forms of electricity, especially while we sleep.
Right. We've talked about that on the show because that's the time when the body produces the hormone melatonin. And if you're being bombarded by all of this, that cannot happen. A lot of people wake up unrefreshed and foggy, and that could be one of the reasons. I've unplugged my entire bedroom, so it's helped.
That's great. And what we do is we actually turn off the circuit breakers to the back part of our house where we sleep, and so that the whole house is quiet from electricity while we sleep.
Right. Well, that's about what we can do at home. Wireless technology is everywhere, not only our homes, but our schools are all wireless smart chalkboards, shopping centers, grocery stores, and even hospitals. So in our day-to-day life, what can we do to lessen our exposure, if anything?
Well, one of the things is this technology that we found. They're called electrodots, and they strengthen your biofield. So they make your field stronger so that you can withstand this attack. Because literally the cell phones are an attack. I refuse to go outside in public anymore because it would just feel like so many knives going into me, especially if I went someplace where there were 10, 20 people with a cell phone. And I could tell exactly when they were transmitting because that's when I'd feel the knife. So we can use, it's called a biodot, and strengthen our electrical field that's around us, our energetic field. And when I'm wearing this, I don't feel other people's cell phones at all. And so that we can do. And then we also have what's called electrodots that go onto the cell phone and actually harmonize. They actually harmonize the energy coming off of it to be helpful rather than harmful. And so we can do these types of things to help protect ourselves. Plus, I think it's critically important that we go back to understanding we don't have to be in 24-hour communication. Mm-hmm. We really, before cell phones, we just waited till we got home, to make that phone call. We don't have to constantly be on the phone or have the phone in the car. The problem with cell phones in the car is that the radiations bounce around inside so that the radiation effect is really multiplied. And so we not only for safety not use a cell phone inside of a car, but also for our health to not have it in there. And I'm very concerned about all this technology that they're building into cars more and more and more. And I have had health consultations where people can't even get in a car because of all the radiation that's in the newer cars.
Absolutely. Even garage door openers, when I was wandering around my home with the acoustimeter and just open the garage door, you see that spike in the meter when you use that function. So that's things that people don't even think about.
I know, and we are being inundated with more and more wireless. I mean, I saw a wireless outdoor thermometer so that you can have the reading in the house. And they're now making a wireless crock pot. I mean, so they are just incorporating it into more and more things. And we, as public, I'm so glad you have me on your show because it's so important that we get educated to not do this type of insanity.
You talk about insanity. I just found this the other day, wearable technology where they're impregnating fabric or creating fabrics with the ability to charge your cell phone with your shirt.
I had not heard that one. Wow. That is,
that's sick, isn't it?
It's just, right, yeah, the comprehension for us being electrical beings and then the total lack of understanding that we're affected by electricity is just staggering. Yes. One of the things that I found in the research is that these radiations, the cell phone radiations, absolutely do kill cells in the brain that are connected to memory. There is absolutely no doubt these lab animals show those cells are killed. And the research shows that just electricity alone is connected to Alzheimer's. So we've had a constant increase in Alzheimer's. It's really taking off now. And the research showed that just having electric heat in the home was connected to an increased incidence of Alzheimer's.
Interesting.
They're now saying that it's causing digital dementia amongst our kids. So there's a book out called Digital Dementia. It shows the brain scans. Absolutely, there's no doubt. Those cells are being killed. And I've had consults where the parents are saying that their children don't have a memory. They are not remembering. They're having the same type of memory lapses as elderly people as they approach Alzheimer's.
Look at the teenagers anymore. I mean, everyone has a cell phone or two. They're stuffed in their pockets. They wear them in their bras. Most teenagers I know sleep with their cell phones. So you've got the constant barrage, not only in the Wi-Fi classrooms, but they're part of their whole culture. So it's hard to take those kind of toys away from people, especially when the parents don't realize that this is a situation. And I know in other countries, I believe cell phones are pretty much banned from use for young children.
Well, they discourage marketing to under 18.
Okay.
And we are so marketing here in America under 18. It's just incredible. Little baby cell phones and little baby monitors. The baby monitors in the room being wireless is ludicrous. Yep. To expose this young developing brain. The young developing cells and this brain, the skulls themselves, much more susceptible to damage to the brain. And here we are exposing more and more without the recognition that there's absolutely no doubt about connection to some of the ADD and autism.
Mm-hmm.
And it's critically important that we stop this because autism has exploded. When cell phones were introduced, cell phones as well as sunscreens were introduced in the 70s, the incidence of autism was 1 in 2,222, and it's now 1 in 58 boys.
Yeah.
This is absolutely staggering. We need to look at this and to stop the proliferation of these and step back and say, hey, what are we doing? What are we doing to our younger generations? The other thing, when you talked about sleep and melatonin, the cell phones absolutely lower melatonin rates, and melatonin is what we need to be able to sleep well. And so these kids are definitely really being impacted hormonally by the lack of their full amount of melatonin that they need.
Right. The research is out there if people just want to pay attention to it. And we're talking about young children and teenagers. What about unborn children, pregnant women using this kind of technology? You see people with pregnant women with laptops on their lap, they're using the cell phones, and there's a story there.
Absolutely. And I think this is part of the autism that cannot do anything but impact the fetal development as these children are being developed inside the womb. The electrical impulse itself I'm sure is impacting it. And then sunscreens also. Sunscreens are very hormonally active. The most common in-use sunscreen chemical is very anti-testosterone. And I think this is one of the reasons why autism is 5-to-1 boys, because they're much more impacted in development because the anti-testosterone impacts them more than the young girls. So it's a combination because the radiations put holes in all our cell membranes, put holes in our whole gut lining. And so it makes sense that it's also making the chemicals more accessible to the developing tissue in the fetus. So this is just really, my answer is it's all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
They're really looking at all these things about the autism epidemic, but when you combine all these chemicals and then the cell phone radiation, the wireless radiation, I think it's coming together like this perfect storm.
Absolutely, and people need to take heed, and that's why your book is excellent. It's easy to read, yet it is so concise and complete, and you talk about the wireless connection to autism, Alzheimer's, MS, obesity, allergies, cancer, fertility. I mean, it just goes on, and solid background, the studies, the research behind it, and if people want to know more, then they can dig into that specific item. Excellent book, EMF FREEDOM Solutions for the 21st Century Pollution. So now, Elizabeth, kind of put some of this in some very simple steps. Give us some of your top suggestions regarding EMF protection.
To take a look at all wireless, and do you really need it? Get off of the wireless routers for the internet, go back to a corded router, go back to everything with cords, get rid of cordless phones. Cordless phones are as bad, if not worse, than cell phones. And go back to landline phones. Do not give up your landline phone. Do not use just a cell phone as your main phone. And do not use the cordless handsets. So right there, just eliminating all that can really be of great benefit. And then these devices that we found have absolutely turned my life around and turned life around of hundreds of people who have sought help to be able to survive. Because we're saying start eliminating all of the wireless that you can, but we realize you can't function because everything's Wi-Fi'd and everybody has a cell phone. So you can use these devices, get these devices on you and on your equipment. If everybody will get their cell phones and computers safer with these types of energy dots, and then everybody will be safer all the way around. The other thing is absolutely permanently opt out of your smart meter. It's insanity to put electric, gas, and water wireless meters on our houses. I don't know, all the states are a little bit different regulation, but in California they did rule it can't be mandatory, so you can permanently opt out. And I think this is imperative. Everybody needs to be educated, and educate all your neighbors to opt out, because this is where we found when people were really getting sick, especially in apartment or condo complexes where there's a lot of smart meters. And these are the people that have found us that are just ready to just give up on living because they're so sick. So definitely it costs money in some regions, in some utility districts. It's well worth the money. We feel it's the best health insurance you can buy. And we're hoping if everybody will opt out, then, it's supply and demand. And part of the problem is it's the government that's pushing the smart meter grid right now. But if more and more of us, and larger percentage, will opt out, it's not going to work. I read a government report where it's saying that the smart meter grid is not smart, and we really need to stop installing them now. But that's going to be a while, and if we can get rid of it off our houses, get our neighbors to get it off their houses, we're going to be a lot healthier.
I agree. And fortunately, you are in the state of California, but many other states, they're in the pilot programs. They're putting them on. They send out the utility people and tell them in no uncertain terms, nope, you have to have this. And your only alternative is you won't have electricity, gas, or water. And you get people that haven't been educated on this subject, and you've got a scary utility person there. Guess what? Then you get it on and you can't get it off. So, we're fighting a really bizarre battle here, such that we've never experienced before.
True. If the people of other states will look at California,
yes,
and start forming massive protests in their states to demand that they at least have the option to opt out. This is imperative for our health. There's no doubt. There's no doubt about the cancer. Absolutely no doubt.
Right.
Some of the research in the book that I have is that if you put breast cell cancer line in a lab and just turn on a cell phone, those cells start replicating. They start dividing. And so we're seeing a lot of cancers that have been in remission, and once the smart meter goes on the house, we're seeing people come out of remission.
Whoa.
And have, the cancer develop again.
Now that's just scary stuff.
Right, and we're supposedly, in a healthcare crisis, and yet all we're doing is generating more health problems. And the doctors do not understand this. This is not in their books. They're not educated on this because this is really a whole brand new area. When I had this terrible rash, head to toe, that itched so bad and I couldn't sleep, and I went to 12 different doctors, and none of them knew. Not one of them understood what was going on. I was diagnosed with scabies. I was diagnosed with schistosomiasis. And I was given all kinds of cortisone. Of course, it didn't help at all because that wasn't the problem. I was sent to an allergist. The allergist said, it's not contact dermatitis, and so, go ahead and leave. And it's just staggering, the ignorance amongst the medical community at this point, because they're not educated as to the effects of this.
Yep. It's all about awareness, and not just us as the patients. As you say, though, the providers, they're going to need to be aware of this as well, so they know how to treat us and what to tell us to do, and not to treat us for something that we don't have. And your website is a great resource. It's got a lot of information that our folks should head over to. So can you tell us a little bit more about your site, what you do, and where everyone can purchase a copy of your book?
Yes. Our website is EMF, like electromagnetic field, so EMFFreedom.com. So there's 2 F's in there, EMF and then freedom.com. And yes, we do have a lot of information on there. We have videos on there that show the technology behind these dots that we found that helped me so dramatically as to why they work in harmonizing these radiations. And so thank you for that. And you can buy the book off the website. It's a great book to share with your relatives or friends who don't believe you. Mm-hmm. If you've got symptoms, these document the symptoms. They say why. The skin itching. Skin itching is a huge problem, and what's happening is that the radiations put holes in cells in the skin that are called mast cells. They contain granules that contain histamine as well as heparin. So all those are opening up. So we have this histamine leak underneath our skin, and there's nothing that touches it. And so they go to the doctor, and they get cortisone cream to put on the skin. It doesn't help at all. So there's documentation about the symptoms that people are feeling. The headache is just lack of oxygen because it changes the shape and electrical charge of our red blood cells. So they all stick together. It's called Rouleauing effect. Mm-hmm. So our brain doesn't get enough oxygen. So the headache that people are getting is the same as going up in altitude, and the oxygen gets less and less in the air. Exact same headache. And I have people say, I get a headache every time I get on my cell phone, or a headache every time I walk in my smart metered house. And so the book really gives the documentation as to why these symptoms, and it's not just in our heads. So it can really help. Because we have husbands and wives. The wife has the symptoms and the husband doesn't, and doesn't believe her. So this is a great book to say, here's the proof. This is why I'm feeling this.
It's called EMF FREEDOM Solutions for the 21st Century Pollution. So do you have any final words of advice before we head out today?
Education and spread the word. It is so important. We're not going to get anywhere. I helped a whole family and identified that their problem, they didn't have cell phones and they didn't have smart meter, but they had cordless phones throughout the house, and the whole family was itching and just getting rid of the cordless phones. So it's really a question of, spreading the word that these radiations are harmful, we are having symptoms, and we need to reduce every source that we can. And if we'll do this in mass, we can get to the other side of this and start in making safe places. We need to absolutely not allow the Wi-Fi in the schools. They banned Wi-Fi in grammar schools in France, and we need to really do that. We need to ban it in all our schools, because what good is it to teach our kids these things, and then if they don't have a memory in 5-10 years from now, and they can't remember anything they're learning. So I think by sticking together and spreading the information that we can make it. And I am available. My email is elizabeth@newvoice.net, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. Again, that's elizabeth@newvoice.net, and then look at our website, emffreedom.com.
Here's what I'll do. On our website, speakupandstayalive.com, I have a link that's called Stop the Smart Meter. I will put this segment that we're hearing today and all of your information on that page as well. So when anytime someone goes to the Stop the Smart Meter on our site, they'll be able to link to your site directly.
That would be great. Yeah, the more we can link and the more we stand up in mass, the more we can stop this.
Absolutely. Elizabeth, how lucky we are to have had you with us today. And I encourage everyone listening to heed your advice, to get a copy of your book. Like I said, it's easy to read, it's concise and to the point. And again, it's called EMF FREEDOM Solutions for the 21st Century Pollution. And your website is emffreedom.com. So let's stay in touch, and you are welcome back anytime.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.